Politics down there are also packing, so you gotta be careful.
Yeah, yeah.
And everyone's in.
Okay. Leslie was looking at different constitutions for gardening clubs.
Okay.
The garden club in Texas, and one of the rules is you have to leave your
Recording in progress.
at the mill.
Let's turn off, I'll turn off my video and we'll shut down Rogers. My camera is, we're not having,
Sorry.
Therese, are you gonna be sitting there today?
Yeah.
Okay, are we good to go? I have the right.
Yes, thank you, Chair. We're good to go.
All right, welcome everybody. May 1st to the Cathet Regional District Planning Committee. I'd like to recognize we're holding this meeting in the traditional territory of the Tla'amin Nation. First order of business is approval of the agenda. Thank you, Director Gisborne and Director McCormick. Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. Good. Next order of business, adoption of the minutes. Are there any errors or omissions from the last bill? Yes? you're making the. Thank you, Director. Second. Okay. Any discussion on the minutes? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. No delegations or inquiries. No unfinished business. We have some correspondence. Is there any comments on that? I do have one. Anything? Director Gisborne.
I'd like to open it up for discussion on these two items because there was
Okay.
quite a
That make it? Yeah. 7.1 and 2.
Well, if we're not going to have motions, then I don't know that you have to move them.
Good. Then we could just discuss. Thank you, Director Gisborne.
Yeah, the first item of correspondence, Bill 16, you know, you get a letter from the minister and it says we're going to do all this wonderful stuff, and then you actually go and you start reading the bill and you start finding out that, oh, it looks like more government downloading onto local governments. Thankfully, it looks like it doesn't really seem to be targeted at regional districts, but it is concerning. And the other thing that I found interesting is later on in our agenda, the capacity grant that we received, you know, we're not able to use it for, you know, floor area and other things like that, but we'll get to that discussion. But Bill 16, it goes, well, if we pass the bill, you can use that grant that we've already given you for legislation that we still haven't adopted yet. So I find that kind of, you know, on one hand, it's a little troubling, but on the other hand, it also signals that they're looking to be flexible with that grant funding that has come out. So when we get later on our agenda, I think I've got a motion to, you know, ask the province, hey, can you be flexible in other ways? So that's the first one for the Bill 16. And then the second piece of correspondence for more small scale multi-unit housing, completely agree with the minister's comments on that. And I look forward to more discussion later in the agenda under the floor area item.
Thank you. I just had a couple of comments from reading both letters that Minister Kahlon sent. Also, it's just about kind of opening up those options. We obviously have a lot of those options available to us already. I think a lot of it, I'm sure the municipalities a little more focused on some of these things than other cities, but I think for those folks who are following and hopefully reading our documentation, it is interesting discussions going on around proactive zoning, inclusionary zoning, density bonuses, and of course these transit-oriented areas in the cities, and tenant protection bylaws. Again, in the cities, right? A lot of it is folks as municipalities, but I think, you know, lots of folks are paying attention to this topic, and then those other bills around stratas, right? And stratification and different tools around multi-unit housing, again, mostly around municipalities. And then, you know, Minister Kahlon took the time to quote the, you know, municipalities and local government must not unreasonably restrict or prohibit development of such units. So, you know, that's the signals that are coming from the province. So I think it's just good information for folks. Director McCormick.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I have a question for staff.
Okay.
And that would be for Ms. Roberts. And, yeah, please. So hopefully, question. In reading subsequent reports on this agenda today, I note that planning staff are reasonably happy with the way things are going right now, in terms of compliance with provincial regulation and the new changes in housing. We're still compliant, as I understand, with those changes. So I'm just wondering how, in what way do they affect the rural areas, our region? The changes in legislation that the province has brought forward, or bringing forward.
Through the chair, I believe, like, are you referring to the new changes that are discussed
Yeah.
in the correspondence?
Yeah.
I'm unable to answer that.
That's a big, sorry, respectfully, I think that's a pretty broad question. But
Yeah.
maybe what you're getting at is just what you see in the correspondence before us. Is there any reason for us to doubt that we're not compliant and that we don't have the tools, you know, available to us? Is maybe I'm paraphrasing, but is there anything kind of standing out to you in this correspondence that we should take action on?
Through the chair, I think it's best to wait until we've prepared a report
Bingo.
on what that looks like and the impact for our regional district.
Good answer. Okay, Director Gisborne.
Yeah, you know, feeding off of Director McCormick's question, I'm wondering if the CAO has heard from other CAOs about this Bill 16 and what effect it might have impact on, because this is still very new. So I know our CAOs across the province going to be at the forefront, so maybe they've heard a little bit more on this.
Well, I'm sure it's ongoing, but CAO.
Through the chair, no, from the regional district CAO group, I haven't had much chatter on it at all.
So I guess they haven't really done any consultation with regional districts on this bill, which is unfortunately not surprising.
Yeah, it was good to see a little bit of acknowledgement of having to work with the different groups in the province, of which we're one. So any other discussion on the matter? Great. So I don't think there's any business arising from the correspondence. We move on to reports. 8.1, floor area ratio and lot coverage ratio. We've been having some discussions on this. We have a recommendation to accept this report. We can have a discussion on it ahead of time. Any discussion on that? Question period.
Okay, so it's only questions. No, it's our new practice.
Yeah, we'll just do 5-minute limits just for now. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, reading through the report, one of my questions came up about budgets, and I think I've asked this before in the past. If we do want to, you know, amend this year's budget and say go above what we've already taxed, we're able to do that, but the taxation comes out of next year's budget. Is that correct?
Through the chair, yes, that would be correct.
Thank you.
That's my main question. Let's hear what anyone else has to say.
Any other? Yes, Director.
Thank you. And this may be more subjective and therefore hard to answer question to staff. And that is there anything broken with the way that we're doing things now that needs to be fixed in that sense? Is there anything that we're not accomplishing by what we're doing right now that would be better accomplished if we made a switch? Or are we satisfied with the way we're doing things right now? That's my question.
Yeah.
Through the chair, according to what Laura has written in this current report, things are pretty good at the moment, and we seem to be in compliance. However, if we're going to go down the route of additional or more questions related to the report, then I would recommend that you postpone anything regarding this report to a future meeting when Laura is available to respond. She is the author.
Oh, I wasn't aware she's not available either. So thank you. All right, Director Elliott.
Thank you for the opportunity to ask questions. So one of the priorities that everybody has right now is housing. And I think one of the things we are trying to see in the floor ratio and lot coverage ratios issue was the idea that rather than having rules based on how many dwellings you could have, you might be able to have more dwellings, but not exceed your service level for the so, you know, a lot might be able to have a number of tiny homes and still be within the lot coverage, as opposed to, because in rural like living, people like, you know, it's more conducive to tiny homes and maybe stratified things or other options compared to just single family dwellings. And getting creative with lot coverage was the idea.
Sure, is there a question?
So the question I'm trying to get
Okay,
at
let's
here,
get the question, yeah.
pardon me, is why would we consider it not a, so the report lays it out as not a strategic priority when the priority is around housing. So I'm wondering why we are thinking about it that way, I guess.
Maybe,
Through the chair.
yep.
Again, I'll reiterate specific questions regarding how the author laid out the report and what their thoughts were, should be referred or postponed to a future meeting when Laura is able to respond and attend. I think she's made reference in the report about the current work plan. So that's all I can say in that comment. But I think it'd be only fair that those types of questions be asked of the author.
Yeah, and I actually think it's fair in a way too, because I have some specific questions that for the author and I wouldn't want to put that on you either. So yes, Director.
I'd move to postpone till planning committee in June.
Okay, any objections, any seconder, I guess, for that? I will second that. Let's have the discussion. Director Usman?
Now, we're gonna have a discussion on whether we postpone it or not, but we're still not gonna have a discussion on the report itself.
Right.
So I came here prepared today to discuss the report itself. So do I just put a pause on that and do it next month?
I think that's the intent of the motion for the reasons that we identified. We don't have the author, and I actually have some questions that that author hopefully can answer.
Well, I have questions for the author, but I still think we can take action on a number of items if we do want to further explore the floor space ratio and lot coverage limits without having the author present. Because we have the report and it has quite a bit of information in it. So I would be fine. Well, I'd be fine having a discussion on it, having a few action items. And if people want to have more specific questions, certainly they can reach out to the author and we can have the author come back next month. Because if we do want to go down this path, it's not going to be quick. Like, even if we said, yep, let's do this, it's not going to be a quick thing.
So, yeah.
Through the chair, I guess I would just ask the board here, is any decisions today time sensitive? And I'm thinking not. And yes, you could have some discussions and perhaps make motions today, but I think it would be unfair to those sitting at the table who have questions that need to be responded to that could influence their decision on any motions being put forth. So I would say that the best thing to do is postpone so that everybody can be on the same page at the same time.
Yes, in support of postponing, I think it's important to get the answers to our questions before we decide on what the recommendation or any recommendations should be coming out of the report. And so I would, I would like to postpone so that we can get that information and consider everything in the full context.
I just want to add my name to it, that I'm also fully in support of postponing.
I'm going to add my comments that I really do want to work on this, and I think there's actually a ton of information in here that I wanted to sort of parse through. Some that may affect my area, and there's some comments in there. That's why I have some specifics. So even though I do sense the urgency, I'm going to vote in favor of postponing. I really encourage directors to put their questions together, which I need to do as well in an organized fashion for that. So Director Gisborne.
Yeah, I would actually argue that there is a time sensitivity item. If we postpone this by a month, then it comes before the planning committee at the beginning of June. Any motions we pass at the beginning of June aren't adopted until the end of June. June 15th is the deadline for UBCM resolutions. So if we postpone this by a month and we decide to have a resolution that relates to UBCM, the only option then would be we would pass a resolution at the June planning committee, and then we would have to rush it right to the board meeting that same day, which might lead to a bit of green bananas.
So you know, any options there?
Through the chair, I think one of the intentions of how we've designed our board meetings to having 2 in a month is for that purpose, so we can
Expeditious.
deal with things quickly. The other thing is, if per se, something was elevated to the board that day, between now and then, I don't think green bananas would ripen, right? I would think they would, I think they would ripen, so that any discussion that day would be fruitful. On the same token, you know, it's up to the board to see if they want to further this today. Because here's the dice. If you think you've got something on the table or to promote, you know, put on the table, you're rolling the dice that you're gonna get 3 votes today. Because we know it's a 2-2 or a 1-4 or 4-0 split here, because we only have 4 on the planning committee. And that's the risk that you take.
And I'll just add, I appreciate your comments on that, and that we have a mechanism to actually expedite this. I totally understand your intent. I think especially for me, when I think about upcoming UBCM, I want to get it right. So I want to actually have time to digest and not have a motion on the fly and those types of things today. So that's kind of where my head's at, Director Elliott.
I don't get a vote here today, but I just wanted to ask if postponing it or shoving it to the committee of the whole might be also an option that also provides if Laura Rudden would be back at that time and would get it before the board prior to, or a little bit early.
Sure, CEO, is that an option for us?
Through the chair,
Or
we have to play that one by ear because of Laura's situation. We're not gonna know, I guess we'll know more within a week's time as to what her day-to-day routine is going to be. And I'll just remind everybody that it could get, you know, if she's available and can attend, then it could get elevated to the board level. But again, it's the same 4 people that are going to be voting on it.
one more.
Yeah, could we schedule like a emergency, or not really an emergency, but separate planning committee meeting specifically for this, for what works with Laura's schedule, because I understand she has a family medical situation, and you know, whatever works is what I'm thinking.
You know, how do scheduling meetings work for us? Or corporate officer?
Through the chair. The chair, you can schedule or call other additional meetings. So I would recommend that we go with the postponement first. And in between time, we'll see what Laura's availability is. And if such, then you could call a meeting.
Okay. Corporate officer, you want to chime in?
Oh, I was just going to say, if we postpone it to the next meeting, which is what we would be doing, if there were a meeting called in between now and here, it could go there.
Okay.
So.
Okay, great. So we need a little more info. So
If that's an option, I would vote in favor of this motion then.
I think we'll call the question then. All those in favor of postponement. Great, scary.
Chair?
And sir, yeah, go ahead.
I just sent a email to our corporate officer with a motion. It's like, where is it? Here we go. And I'll wait until. I hope it went through.
Good, thank you. Although, are you doing this as a notice of motion?
Oh, I was going to put it forward as a motion based on our conversation that we didn't have, but based on the time sensitivity, I think we could throw it up on the screen, and if someone wants to second it, because I think it's fairly straightforward. I can read it out while it's getting.
Just give me half a second to do some.
Yeah, it would be that the committee recommend that the board pass the following motion. Whereas the BC Ministry of Housing Capacity Fund can only be used for local governments to meet the legislative requirements for bills 44 and 46. This was written before I saw the correspondence. Whereas the regional district has met the provincial government's requirement related to OCP and zoning bylaw reforms, and that the Cathedral Regional District is seeking to pursue greater residential flexibility options, that the Cathedral Regional District requests that the Minister of Housing expand the parameters of the Housing Capacity Fund to allow for consultation and engagement for the purposes of OCP density reforms related to lot coverage and floor area ratios. It would essentially be asking the minister, hey, can you broaden the scope of the money that we already have?
Okay, so I think we've got it up there. Great, I understand it now. So you're moving that. I'll second that.
I'll be quick.
Yep.
Yeah, I just wanted to get this before the assembly, but if we want to postpone this one as well, I'm very happy with that. But I figured, since I had this one worked out this morning, I figured let's get it before the assembly so that it can ripen in people's heads. And if we want to postpone it, I'm very happy with that too.
Director McCormick.
I'd move to postpone
Okay, great.
to the next planning committee meeting, so that again, we can consider all of the information available, from staff, and then make decisions in context. So I think it's important that we wait until.
We'll see if we get a seconder and then.
I'll second.
Okay.
I'll second so she can keep her.
Okay, so that's it then. I think it makes sense to postpone so that we make the right decision and not the quick decision.
Any other discussion? I'll just add, I think it does make sense it's all related, so. Seeing no further hands, we'll call the question in favor. Any opposed? Carried. 8.2, minimum parcel frontage exemption, 1956 Roberts Road in Area C. We have a recommendation here that we grant an exemption from the requirement of 10% of the parcel perimeter. It's a 2-lot subdivision at that location.
I'll move the recommendation.
Yeah, do we have a seconder? Director McCormick, thank you. Discussion. Director Brandon.
I think the report was very clear. It shows that these sort of exemptions are the decision of the regional district, and this particular property seems to tick all the boxes, even with the smaller frontage. So I'm quite happy to support it.
Okay, I think I saw Director McCormick.
Yeah, does the small frontage enable emergency vehicles to come and go, fire trucks, etc.? Is it large enough for that?
Ms. Roberts?
Through the chair, my understanding with discussions with staff from the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure is that they've already built the access and that the access meets Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Access.
Thanks, that's what I read as well. Any other questions, comments? All right, we'll call the question. All those in favor of the recommendation? That motion is carried. Thank you. 8.3, we're on to another referral for a conventional subdivision application. This is at 7791 Highway 101 in Area B. The recommendation is that we support the proposed 2-lot subdivision as shown on the plan. Of course, there's subjects, proof of water and septic, and that the property owner entering into a covenant, which we typically do for slope hazard areas on our properties. So have a recommendation to have a good one and Director discussion. Pretty straightforward. Oh, Director McCormick.
Well, I'm just looking at lot 1. It's a very complex lot between the riparian stuff, the slope hazard stuff. There's a lot of issues there. So is it going to be hard for them to comply with all those regulations and still build the buildings that they need to build?
Well, Ms. Roberts, maybe we can ask you, I can see on page 11 of 22, maybe what Director McCormick.
Yeah, I'm looking at that, the map there.
If we want to have a look at that, I think that's what you're.
Right, because the bigger lot goes all the way back and includes all that stuff.
Yes.
Through the chair, I don't believe it to be too onerous. The parcel measures 3.47 hectares in area, which I think is adequate space to still build, and also have the section 219 covenant for slope areas.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, that's a good one.
Yeah, I had similar concerns to Director McCormick's point. It's slope hazard areas. I there's no riparian on that area. It's really, dangerous slopes. The smaller parcel of 1 hectare doesn't appear to have any such hazards and slopes. So the much larger parcel is the one that does have the slope hazard areas, which is the 3-meter high gradient or greater, and the with a 35% slope, I think, is I'm getting that right. But because of course it's a much larger lot that's left over with those hazards, I think the property owner can work out where to have usable land, because it looks like the area that's not covered under those hazards, there's still at least 1 hectare left for them to play around with. But that smaller lot is up by the highway and it doesn't seem to have any restrictions. So that's why I'm okay with it. And I'm also very kind of happy to see how we're dealing with natural hazards, because I know that was a big issue. And this is one of the ways that we're able to address natural hazards in the community without being overly onerous on either staff or property owners. But I thank Director McCormick for the concern raised.
Yeah, and sorry, just having a quick look at it, I know that on 11 of 22, it doesn't actually show where the home is situated. That's on 9 of 22, but it looks like it's just outside that setback. So we would hope that where and there's already a building there, so they're well underway, but a little more housing in the area, so it's good to me. And I just curiosity for me, I never knew what that old highway piece that dips down below Fats Crescent. Okay. All right, no further questions. We'll call back away. Oh, sorry, Director Elliott.
It's just a funny, so I noticed the road is probably already built through that narrow section. And it also accesses the lot beside it. So is that easement intended for access to both of those lots, or just?
Mr. Roberts, do you know the answer to that?
Through the chair, it's already an existing driveway. I'm assuming that there is already an existing easement for lot 5 east.
Okay, thanks.
That's just an assumption, sorry.
All right, well, we have our recommendation. No further questions. We'll call the question. All those in favor? That's unanimous. That's carried. Thank you. Good stuff. I don't see any new business, or is there any new business I should ask? Okay, good. Question period. Do we have Mr. Lewinsky or anyone? Maybe not. No, okay. No proposed in-camera session. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Okay, wasn't that?
Oh,
Recording stopped.
oh, really?